Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am the Sipping Tea, and today I'm going to be reviewing the British Era 1 light tank, the FV107. So, without further delay, let's get into it. So today's video is going to be a bit different from the other reviews that I've done recently anyway, in the form that this is in fact a tech tree tank as opposed to the premium tanks that I have otherwise been covering in Cold War. So with that being said then, I would say that the battle earn rates of this tank obviously are the default 100% for everything, with the exception of free XP, which is of course 5%. So no additional earn rates there. It's just the bog standard default that you get on tech tree tanks, as one would expect of course. Otherwise, moving on into well, the actual finer points of the tank, starting with the gun. The penetration of the gun here, the final gun that is unlocked at level 6, the standard shells, the penetration is 135mm, and the premium rounds offer 180mm of penetration. They both do just 25 damage each, I beg your pardon, 25 damage per shell. However, you do get 6 shots per clip, and the reload time of the clip is, by default of course, only 1.9 seconds, so 2 seconds to not mess around. That of course is a very, very, very quick reload for a tank with 6 shots in a clip. The intra-clip reload is, well, a quarter of a second, so 0.25 seconds. So well, you'll see in the footage here that it really is a little pop gun. It doesn't do a lot of damage per shot, but it really does slam out that damage quite quickly. And if you manage to find yourself in a position where you're able to circle around the enemy tank to avoid getting hit, whilst giving yourself access to the vulnerable parts of the tank like the sides and the rear, you will more often than not pen, depending on the tank of course. The ever-famed FV107 will of course put up a bit of resistance around the sides and the front, but maybe not quite as much off the rear. But anyway, if you circle the enemy tank with this, with the Scimitar, with the FV107, then you will be in a very, very advantageous position. You really will be able to rack up the damage relatively quickly. The aim time is 1.8 seconds, something that I would say is largely irrelevant with this tank just because of how it's played. It's not a tank that sits at the back of the map, hopefully anyway, and you know, snipes, because it just doesn't have that ability. It really is a frontline tank, doing all the scouting and harassing the larger tanks that perhaps aren't quite as mobile, tank destroyers in particular perhaps. I would say that when it comes to the Scimitar here, the FV107, it is really well equipped for that kind of gameplay. The maximum forward speed of the vehicle is 86.9 kilometers per hour, and the maximum reverse speed of the vehicle is 41.8 kilometers an hour. Now, I will of course get onto the equipment later on in this video, but certainly you can increase that dramatically in terms of maximum speed. So yeah, really a very, very fast tank, and it's also quite small. So not only is it really, really fast, it's also very hard to hit because of its size as well. Not too dissimilar in some respects to the Armadillo, of course, which I've covered in a previous video. To finish briefly the gun statistics, the maximum gun depression is 10 degrees and the maximum elevation is 35 degrees, so yeah, pretty good on that front as well. Quickly jumping back to the engine and actual speed performance, fire chance of the engine is 15%. Yes, it's a British tank. They like to catch fire. That's just how we roll. I mean, a fire extinguisher, despite that 15% risk of catching fire, is questionable on a tank like this, because again, you're unlikely to get hit, at least if you're moving about, and if you've stopped still, then yeah, fine, you might catch fire if someone shoots you, but equally you're pretty up the creek if someone shoots you anyway. If you're still, yeah, you'll be extraordinarily vulnerable at that point. So possibly I would say, and this is a case of do as I say, not as I do, as you'll see in the video, when it comes to equipment, or sorry, consumables, I would say that perhaps smoke would be a better option, purely because it gives you that extra camouflage factor, which naturally, of course, is one of this tank's strengths, which nicely moves us on to the still concealment, which is 0.49, so extraordinarily good for still concealment, if I put my teeth in. Yeah, really very good for that. HP 1700, so yeah, not amazing, is it? But then again, it's an Era 1 light tank, so what more do you expect? Vision range on this by default is 530 meters, so reasonably good at spotting as well. So moving on then to equipment, I would say my recommendation would be to really amplify this tank's speed. It's extraordinarily good when it comes to speed, so why not make it even better? So traction system, which of course increases the maximum speed by 10% and also improves the handling of the tank as well, in form of the hull and chassis rotation speed by 10%. You do that and, well, you're laughing. You've increased your maximum forward speed by nearly 10 kilometers an hour just by doing that. If you then add on top of it an advanced powertrain, increasing max speed and horsepower by another 5%, then you can go 100 kilometers an hour in this tank very easily, very easily. So traction system, advanced powertrain. I would also recommend going for advanced concealment, so you're a little bit more stealthy. And well, from there, because I really don't think that you need to have the enhanced targeting or enhanced target, you know, to get you that red outline around the tank, because you probably won't spend a lot of time aiming down sights at the tanks here. This is in my experience, a tank that you sort of auto-lock onto the enemy and then you zip around it in circles, like I mentioned before. So I don't think enhanced targeting is necessary on this tank, or really of any great use. So that does open that equipment slot, and there I think that it's a bit more of sort of anyone's choice there as to what you go for. I don't think that we need to really address the load time on this tank, because it's already very fast, and well, let's say a 10% reduction in time is actually not going to be it's not really going to be much at all. It's literally going to be less than a second that you're going to be taking off the load time. So I wouldn't recommend something like advanced loader. I probably wouldn't even recommend vents for a similar reason, though obviously it does affect more than just the load time, of course. But my recommendation here would actually be the gun stabilizer. It increases your accuracy by 20%, and that to me is sort of what you want if you're bombing around the map really fast. If you're perhaps a little bit further away from the enemy tank than you maybe ought to be, the gun stabilizer could very much be the difference between hitting the target and not. So I mean, an increase of 20% accuracy, you could consider that, in some respects at least, to be 20% closer to the enemy when you're firing, sort of. But otherwise, maybe a spall liner to try and reduce some of the ramming damage that you may receive if you've driven into someone or they've driven into you. There may be, but that's probably going to be pretty devastating regardless. So yeah, questionable, I would say, as to whether or not that's worth putting in. So yeah, camo net, gun stabilizer, traction system, advanced powertrain. That is what I would recommend for this tank in order to you know, to keep it zipping around the map relatively undetected and otherwise very hard to hit. The other alternative, which would make a lot of sense, instead of gun stabilizer, would perhaps be advanced optics to increase the view range by 10%. That may well be worth your consideration as well. When it comes to the crew skills, again, I'm not really going to spend a huge amount of time looking at the crew skills, because you've of course got the standard crew skills, I would say. You definitely want all of the accuracy crew skills. You may wish to consider the reload crew skills, though of course, as I mentioned before regarding the gun, the advanced loader, you don't really need to buff something that's already damn near instantaneous. So you might be able to leave that out of the equation, in order to make room for your camo skills, which I'd absolutely recommend, and also anything that will improve the handling of the tank. If you're a bit concerned about the tank catching fire because of that 15% fire chance on the engine, then you could also go for the crew skills that minimize the risk of fire, so you could passively sort of do that as well. So I think really that more or less covers all of the basics when it comes to the Scimitar, the FV107 Scimitar. It is a great tank. It is a tank that, well, people who've got it tend to really love it, and people that don't have it tend to really hate it, because it does cause a bit of havoc. But yeah, I think that's more or less it really for the review of this tank. In the footage here, I do have a rather cheeky sort of clip where I've done very little in the game, damage and spotting wise, but I managed to actually run away with the game, where I've capped the enemy base alongside a teammate of mine, and just at the final moment where the enemy was approaching the base, looking like they were gonna ruin our day, hit one of us and reset our cap points, I popped the smoke and boom, there we go. They can't see us, they have no chance, and we managed to cap the base and win that game. So that's one in the eye for the enemy team. At the end of that game, my teammate who was capping the base with me did actually send me a message saying that was a brilliant smoke at the end of that, and yeah, it all panned out in the end and seemed to come together quite nicely. So that's the end of the tank review. Just a very quick and casual mention to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment below with any feedback, or just to let me know that you're there. You will see that I always react or reply to every single comment that's left on my videos. You know, they are important to me. I do have the Twitch channel. You would have seen the little sort of splash advert, as it were, at the start of this video for that. The link is in the description. If you haven't already followed me on Twitch, then please do follow the link and hit follow. Then you'll be notified when I go live if you wish. Obviously you can disable the notifications if that's not really your bag, but Twitch basically, because it's been brought to my attention that perhaps not everyone knows what Twitch is. It's a live streaming platform, so imagine it's similar to YouTube, but it's live. So think of live TV. Live sports is probably a great sort of comparison there, because it's an e-sport, quote unquote. But yeah, you get to watch me literally play live, have a bit of a chat and an interaction with you, the audience, and also anyone who I may well be playing with in the party. And it's completely free, of course, just like YouTube is here. It's not going to cost you anything. You just come along and watch. Very easy. And if you've got an Amazon account, because Amazon own Twitch, if you've got an Amazon account, you can just log in just like you would on an Amazon account, because they're essentially one and the same. So that's that. Patreon as well, I've got the link for that down in the description. Once again, to Tragic Nemesis, thank you ever so much for your continued support. It helps me out greatly. At the moment I've got some real issues with capture cards, the cards that actually allow me to record and save the gameplay footage. I've I've had 3 that have broken, would you believe it? One was a very cheap one, and the other 2 were Elgato, top of the range Elgato ones. And they both broke in one respect or another. One had truly horrific audio, it was all crackly. So Patreon will help me actually, you know, fund my what turns out to be my capture card addiction, where I can't help but buy dozens of capture cards whether I like it or not. So if you can help me on that, where basically Patreon, it's a subscription donation, so you can pledge to donate as little as, say, $1 a month. It's all monthly, comes out on the first of the month, I believe. You can pledge to donate as little as $1, and that $1 will come out automatically every single month. I don't think there is a limit to how much you can pledge, but obviously, if you can actually do so, only do what you can afford, obviously. So, with that all being said, thank you ever so much for watching my video, and I'll catch you next time.